week 4 of Inhabit, where we're laying some foundational principles about how habits are actually formed in our lives, and the hopes that some of these laws that we're talking about will be things we'll anchor back to as we begin to unpack specific habits over the next several months. So we've looked at a couple of different laws or ideas of concepts of how to find success in forming habits. We looked at the idea of cues or making something obvious when we want to pursue that. Last week we looked at the idea of making something attractive that we want to pursue as a formational habit in our lives. And so today we're going to look at a third idea, which is actually to make it easy. To make it easy,
right? My favorite one.
Absolutely. You know, it's kind of funny. There's that old adage, work smarter, not harder. And that's one of the things that we begin to maybe uncover again in this Atomic Habits book is kind of this misconception that we have that the people that we admire a lot of times as these, you know, people that are disciplined.
Got it all together.
And we're like, they got some DNA, some gene that I didn't get, you know, or they just have this uber amount of self-discipline or self-control, and so we count ourselves out from the ability to do that. He points out actually a lot of times the people that we admire are people that maybe don't necessarily have any more self-control or self-discipline than you or me, but they've learned to order their lives in such a way that it actually makes it easier for them to achieve disciplined routines, habits.
Exactly. And that's actually something that I think Jesus was getting at in this strange passage that we just read. It's one of those passages where, like, he just said that, you know, like if your arm causes you to stumble, cut it off. If your eye causes you to stumble, pluck it out. You know, it's kind of graphic.
It's very graphic, actually.
And it's one of those passages that people sometimes are like, whoa, what exactly did he mean by that? But Jesus used hyperbole a lot to make his points come across, and that one definitely gets across. And so, you know, part of what he's saying there is, like, if something is causing you to stumble, don't keep coming to the table with the need for all your self-control to avoid sinning in that situation. Like, cut that out of your life, you know, remove it, which I think has spoken to me about a lot of things, whether it's like bad habits that I'm dealing with or good habits that I'm wanting to start. Like, sometimes you just need to make it a little bit easier on yourself instead of thinking that you somehow have to muster all this willpower day in and day out to do this. It's like, no, just be smart.
Right.
Make a wise decision. So it's good advice.
Yeah, that there is nobility in hard work, no doubt. But there's a nobility or something admirable that comes from being proactive in considering how it is, again, that we can order our lives in such a way that makes the direction we want to go more conducive.
Well, it's being realistic, because the reality is that there's going to be days where you wake up and it ain't your best day. Like, you don't have all the willpower that day. Something happened that has made you emotionally vulnerable, or you just didn't sleep enough, or, you know, you're having a bad hair day or whatever. There's going to be those days and times, and if we have not organized our life in a way that the good habits are easier, then we're going to have a hard time keeping them going on the bad days.
So an example that's given in the book of this is to kind of design an environment that makes the habit you're working toward more easy. And really, there's actually a few laws at work, and I think this example here, but in your handout you see a picture of a room or cafeteria where the goal was that people would drink more water. And so in the first setup, they didn't really change anything. They didn't alter the environment at all. But in the second image there, you see that they specifically or intentionally arranged the room with multiple places where people could find water, where they were already going to be sitting, where they were already going to be standing in line. They would place the water cooler, the water source right there, making it easy. And lo and behold, guess what?
You know,
a lot more water.
They didn't even have to ask people to drink more water. They just did it because it was
there.
Easy.
It was easy. And you know, you talk about waking up on a bad day. Pretty much every morning that I wake up, starts with me going, why, Lord? No, that's not true. But there is a sense I'm not naturally a morning person. But over the last couple of years in particular, I've learned to develop the habit of morning exercise, getting up earlier than I ever have in my life and exercising. And I see the reward of that.
We're getting older.
True. But I learned that some of the things that were preventing me from that were just the difficulties of my stupor in the morning, of not thinking clearly, of not waking up with an alertness. So I started designing my environment the night before, where I'd pull out the things that I needed to put on to go to the gym and lay those out. And what I was doing was applying this law, making it as easy as possible so I didn't have to think in the morning. I'm also very thankful that I have a chauffeur, my wife, who drives me now to the gym. Makes it even easier. It's really a great setup.
All you gotta do is just stumble to the car. Yes, and that's also something that reminded me of something that he said in that Atomic Habits book, was that you can make it as easy as you need to start a new habit. And so he mentioned, like, if you were wanting to run, for instance, in the morning, just start by putting on your shoes. Like, that's the beginning of the habit. That's easy. Everybody can put on the shoes, hopefully. So get some Crocs.
I mean, if I laid them out the night before, I can put them on.
There you go. So, just start easy. I think he even mentions like a 2-minute rule, like making a 2-minute rule. Like, you can do it for 2 minutes. So just like keep it simple at first, because the idea is to get into doing the habit and getting the repetitions in. And then as you get used to doing it, then you can build that thing out to a more effective, whatever it is you're wanting to do. And as long term, you're wanting to find and keep the sweet spot. And so you've got on your handout something called the Goldilocks rule, of like making it just challenging enough that it keeps you interested, keeps you growing, but also keeping it easy enough that you're not just going to get burned out and say, like, what's the point of this? And, it's not even fun to do it, Right. So we it's one of these things where this principle of making it easy is kind of about like finding that sweet spot, finding a good place to begin, especially if you're trying to start a new habit that is just right for you.
Right. And I know we're 4 weeks into this, and maybe some of you are going, okay, this is interesting and all, but I'm not really working on a spiritual habit yet. Remember, that's coming. And so, for instance, in just a couple of weeks, we're really going to start talking about the habit of quiet, of being alone with God, of utilizing time like that for prayer. And so whether it's that discipline or where we move on from there in different habits, this is a great place to anchor back to, is starting, if there is no discipline or habit of prayer or quiet or solitude, start with the 2-minute rule. Like,
right.
This is that's start with at an easy point.
Yeah.
And then learn to build over time.
Yeah, because sometimes we have this image of like the perfect thing that it needs to be, and that keeps us from doing the habit because we're not able to do the perfect thing yet, or it's just too much.
And you start seeing how all of these things now are layered, right? That you are alluding to week 1, process over perfection.
Exactly.
And here we are seeing we're making it easy at the beginning of a habit because it's about the process that we're wanting to engage in.
So, and of course, as we've talked about every week, you can flip this law around just like all the others, and if there's a habit you're trying to root out of your life, you can make it hard. You can make it a lot harder to do that thing. So instead of laying things out the night before, you put them away.
Hide them, right.
You hide them.
But where you're trying to remove obstacles to make something easier, if it's a habit you're breaking, you want to maybe create obstacles, make it more difficult. If, there's the little, I think it was on Shark Tank with the canister that had the timer on it, that you could put a device, or you could put sweets in, or whatever it was that you were trying to prevent yourself from eating, and you were making it really hard to get that, to consume that, whatever it is. And so there's just kind of an example of ways that you actually can put an obstacle in the way that isn't even naturally there.
Yep. So great principles. Talk about how to make it easy.